And yeah, I try to imagine myself that I'm in the bubble, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So how do you protect yourself?
So I'm a huge empath as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really struggle with I cry like nearly every day at like
Mm.
TV shows and
That's beautiful.
adverts and like memes and everything. I honestly cry at everything. I really do. It's so bad. I protect.
You know, I started learning Spanish and I watched Spanish soaps, right? And they are so dramatic and I just cry. I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. They are reunited again. This is so beautiful. So I'm with you.
That is so funny. um, so I protect my energy before every reading. I will do a grounding meditation. I obviously do a lot of work, like I call in my spirit guides, and then I use crystals. I'll usually use something like a piece of amethyst. I've got a huge cave of amethyst, which will
Mm,
just absorb any negative energy. And I also really like to, as you said, the bubble thing is a good one.
mhm,
But I also like to really smudge herbs. So
mm.
I don't often use, like recently I've been using a lot of rosemary, which is
Okay.
really, really good for protection. I use mugwort when I want to get into my like third eye and my psychic abilities. I'll also use a lot of lavender for like calm. So I'll
Mhm,
make little bundles of these herbs and kind of burn them together. And
mhm.
I blow them all around the house and all around my space. And I just feel that that gives me a layer of like, it just gives me an extra layer of protection, and I know my cards are cleansed. I know that I'm cleansed, so I'm not carrying
Mhm,
any energy into a
mhm,
reading. And I
mhm.
also know that my cards are just picking up the energy of the person in front of me and not carrying energy from,
You.
someone
Mhm.
else. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's super important to protect your
Yeah.
energy, and yeah, it's difficult sometimes when you're around people. Like I couldn't understand that in the past. I didn't know why it makes me feel like that. I was like, there must be something wrong. Either I'm very like sensitive person and it does
Yeah.
really affect me, or there's like, or it's my anxiety. Like who knows what
Yeah.
is it? You
One thing I
also,
would,
uh-huh.
sorry, one thing I would say is there is like a big, I think there's a big gray area between intuition and anxiety, because I
Yes,
feel
yes.
that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can have a really anxious thought and it can be misinterpreted as intuition, but it is anxiety. So I feel like there is quite, I actually have been, I do this a lot myself because I can be quite anxious myself too. I think it's good to like track the feelings in your body. So intuition wouldn't feel scary and all consuming. It's
Yes.
almost just like a
Yeah.
wave of knowing that would just like wash
Mm-hmm.
over you. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whereas anxieties where your heart rate starts going, you might start
Mm-hmm.
like having shortness of breath or,
Mm-hmm.
struggling to function. That's probably more anxiety than intuition.
Yeah, I really like acknowledge myself that I feel fear or I feel anxiety in this moment, and try not to like make any decisions in that moment, just to ground myself. And I
Mm.
think it's also like a sign that I should be closer with myself and should listen to my emotions, because they're trying to tell me something, and they are scary, they are uncomfortable, and I'm still learning how to deal with them, because that was my biggest struggle, to understand that like sadness and loneliness are as good as happiness and fulfillment. They are all emotions. They are all good. There is no such a thing as bad and good emotions. They're just comfortable and uncomfortable. But I like that would be super difficult for me to sit with uncomfortable emotions. I would just run away from them and start doing something, start going something just to avoid it. And since I'm like, okay, I feel anxious, I feel sad, it just goes away. It's like loses its power. It's just like, oh, she's not bothered. Let's go,
You can,
guys.
yeah, sitting with them can be so uncomfortable. I
Mm.
I really struggle. Like even now,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it takes a lot just to be like, okay, I feel sad. I'm just going to let this energy like ride the
Mhm.
wave of this motion.
But it's just part of being a human, really, and there is like no shame. I know that we like to express ourselves when we are happy because it's just easier, and it's easier to do things when you're happy. But the real life, the real thing is when you face those uncomfortable emotions and your response to it, like what you're going to do about it. Because I think that's where we grow, in that sadness and grief when we experience them, we can really take a lot from it. And every time,
Totally.
it's hard, but every time when I do experience, I'm like, okay, what can I take from it? Even if it's really hard. Jade, can you please tell me what's the difference between full and new moon, and how can we use the energy from full and new moon?
Yeah, of course. So I love that every phase of the lunar cycle has a completely unique energy, and we can use that energy in a totally different way, and we can really harness it to be confident or to know when to rest, and for our intentions and our manifestations. What I would usually say is the new moon can also be called the dark moon. It's when the moon isn't visible in the sky,
Yeah.
and it is the very, very first phase of the lunar cycle. But this is a time where you might want to start thinking about, okay, almost like, when it's the new year and you're like, okay, I've
Yeah.
got a whole or a new month, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the first day of something new. What do I want to do? What do I want to grow? What do I want to focus on? So it's where the seeds begin to be planted. It's not where you're going to reap the harvest, but it's where
Yeah.
the seeds are planted.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to think about the new moon and think about what is coming up for me this month. What do I want to achieve? How can I grow in different ways? So that's what I would say. The energy that comes can be a little bit, I find it quite powerful and quite, it depends what sign it falls in, obviously, as well, and where we are in the astrologically. But I feel that the new moon is a time to set intentions and prepare. The full moon is where we start to reap the benefits a little bit more. We
Yeah.
start to see things that are coming into bloom, and we can make some adjustments. So if you imagine like a seed of intention and growing every single day, and it gets to the full moon, it's at its peak. On the full moon, you might want to think about, okay, how much progress have I made since the new moon? What has came into fruition? What am I happy with? Where can I make adjustments? And where do I need to let go? But I would say the new moon is more of a yang energy. To me, it's more of a get up and go. It's more power. Whereas the full moon is moving into that yin energy. So we're moving more into that kind of slow pace, to calm, relaxed, going inwards, a little bit more insular energy. So making adjustments, taking it easy, and resting. They say the new moon is a really good time to cut your hair. There's different,
Oh, that's
there's
interesting.
different, yeah, there's different, that just popped into my head.
I want to cut my hair.
There's different times of the cycle that different things should be done. How I like to think about it is, for me, the waxing phases of the lunar cycle, from the new moon up until the full moon, those phases for me are like, if I was describing them, they would be like going after what I want, big heavy gym classes, HIIT classes, running, power, power, power. Then I think about the full moon back into the new moon again, and I'm thinking more about like slow yoga and nice ritual baths and like insular
More
energy.
like nourish your body and
Yeah,
soul
but
during the full
obviously
moon.
we've also got to consider our menstrual cycle alongside all of this
Yes,
as well.
yes,
And
yeah.
that is something for those of us who do bleed, that's something that's really important. And I think tracking, what's going on in the lunar cycle alongside where you are in your menstrual cycle can be such a superpower. Such a
It
superpower.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's crazy how connected we are to the moon, and
Yeah.
how little we know. Like when I discover more and more, I'm like, wow, why we don't know that? Why nobody tells us? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on?
I know.
The only thing that I don't understand is like new moon in some star signs, but it's not that star sign season right now. And I just don't it's so many things. It's so many things to learn. I started reading a book called Cosmic Health, and it's about our signs connected with like planets and our health. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much,
Yeah.
so much.
So I'm very, very new to, well, I wouldn't say I'm very new, but I'm a beginner when it comes to astrology. Like, I know the basics of astrology and I know a lot about the moon, but I find it fascinating, but I also find it quite overwhelming, the whole how different houses and different
Oh
relations to
yes,
different planets.
yes.
And I would love to know about it, and I would love to be able to learn. I've read books and I've tried my best to kind of, I'd love to do a course on it, but right now I feel like with doing Reiki, with doing meditation, crystal work, tarot, I don't want to be adding too
More
many
and more, yeah.
more and more into it. Like, I don't want to end up being like
doing
I feel all
everything.
of them are interconnected, but I
Hmm.
feel like it's so good to just really focus your energy at the
Yes,
moment
yeah,
for me in one or
yeah.
two places, because
Hmm.
I do have a tendency to really spread myself thin, and I find I burn out that way. Because I,
I'm like, I'll try everything what's out there, what's possible. I'll try
me too,
everything, and I'll tell
me
people how
too.
amazing it is, and then I just leave it and try something new, and that's just constant cycle. But I just like learning. I just like knowing new stuff, and
Oh, me too.
it
Yeah.
makes me very inspired and creative when I do something completely new, something that like the podcast I've never done before. I have no bloody clue what I'm doing, but I'm doing it because I want to know. I want to learn. So that's fascinating because then you have another like experience of doing things. But I think yeah, if you're like you being a Reiki healer,
Mm.
and tarot reader, it's good to know, but not necessarily like know everything about it. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. I just find that I end up like right now beside my bed, I have a pile of books that I want to read. And it's honestly got to about 6 books, and each of them are like different genres, different themes. One's breath work, one's witchcraft and spell work, one's astrology, one's fictional. And it's just like, it's just like, I can't, I can't focus
Do
my
you
mind
do
on one
that?
or two things.
Do you read few books at the same time?
I can read. Mm, mm, I try to, but again, I'm also always doing like some kind of online course, and like it's just like I don't. I'm quite a scattered energy. Like
Mhm.
I'm very. I've noticed about myself. One of the biggest things I've noticed actually since starting my own business is how
Mhm.
much that I'm in my feminine energy. Like I really lack any kind of masculine energy, which I
Mhm.
really need to work on.
Mhm.
But I am such a scatterbrain. Like I will be able to think about a 10-year plan and have a big vision for the future, but I can't reply to like an email within an hour or a day or a week.
Oh my god. I'm constantly in the future. I'm like, oh my god, the future. I had this chat with my friend yesterday because we at the beginning of the year we did like a vision board, and on my vision boards I was like, I had like 100K a month, like Range Rover. I was like, you sit in your flat. Like, your life is not gonna change next month. You're not gonna make 100K from like nothing. Like, what? And I would be like disappointed, but I would be like, why it never happened? Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So next time we
It
did our
can
vision,
happen. It
it can
can.
happen. It can happen, but also
It
like
can.
it leads to disappointments sometimes. I don't need that. So we did another vision boards with like goals that are like realistic, and it's happened. I manifested it and it works. So it's just little step by step. I need to be
Yes,
more grounded. Like I need to be more present, definitely,
I'm the
because
same.
I can be so much in the future, or like I can be like, oh my god, tomorrow I'm moving to the different country and start my life again. Like this is not needed. Like this is not needed. I have a tendency to be like quite hot-headed person,
Mm.
which is quite funny. Dramatic sometimes as well. I like it because it's funny. But yeah. What is the biggest difference between masculine and feminine energy?
So for me, it's so funny. I used to be way more hot-headed than I am now.
Hmm.
I always say that, yeah, I used to be very, very like fiery, really like jump off at anything and quite like,
Mhm.
passionate, I would call it.
Yes.
But recently I've just became like completely the opposite, like very like quite like nonchalant about a lot of things. Like I'm just like, "Oh, whatever, whatever." And
Oh,
it's really
that's a good
strange. I don't know if I'm
change.
through a personality transformation. Maybe it's just because it's lockdown. It was lockdown and there wasn't really
Yeah.
much to do.
Yeah.
Um the difference between masculine and feminine energy. Okay, so for me, feminine is very intuitive. It's the emotional energy. It's all from the sacral. So we're thinking about our creativity and our ideas and like, that really maternal, bigger picture stuff. So we're thinking about like our nurture and our flow. I think of it like a flow. Whereas for me, masculine is the logic, the structure, the fire energy, like the
Mm-hmm.
sun being a masculine force, the moon being a feminine force,
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
sun is very much like setting, being logistical and being quite rational and thinking about things in structured plans and getting things done, like getting shit done,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas feminine is more emotion led and heart led. And
And
I'm
we should
definitely
have like a
lacking in the power element.
Or we should have balance of two of them, right?
We should, yeah, we should have a balance.
How can we do that?
So to balance out the masculine and feminine, a really simple way that I like to do it, just first thing in the morning, is alternative nostril breathing.